Well, hello, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Self-Publishing
Oh,
Yourself
Kevin,
with
stop
Draft to
calling me
Digital.
beautiful.
I can see where you'd make that mistake, Mr. Mark LaFave. So, I am Kevin Thompson. I'm the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for Draft to Digital. And to my virtual right is, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Mark Leslie LaFave. I'm the Director of Business Development for Draft to Digital, and thrilled to be sharing this content with you here today.
This is officially the first broadcast of the new year, 2021. We made it. We're alive. I know there were some rough patches right there in the first week, but we're going to be okay. Everybody's going to be okay. So, and that's some of what we're going to talk about today is about how we make sure that we are okay as authors in this space. And we're really excited to talk about some of this stuff. Every year, everyone does a sort of new year, new you kind of thing. We're not that different. We are doing a little bit of how to get the most out of your new year. We're going to give you some links to some stuff here in a bit. But Mark and I wanted to hop in and talk to you guys about. Well, you saw the topic for the show. It's about author strategy and goal setting, and we want to make sure we give you some useful, actionable tips for how you can do some planning in your own author career. And I apologize. I'm hearing like doubles of myself, so I'm getting a little distracted by my own gorgeous voice. So
I can see how that can happen, Kevin. That can easily distracted by that gorgeous voice. But the other thing to remember is, okay, it's the 14th of January, 2021 when we're recording this. If you haven't set goals or writing goals or whatever, it's never too late. So it's not. Don't beat yourself up if you were a little bit occupied and not able to take care of that. It's okay because you can kind of pick up setting goals at any time. And the other thing, because I do this all the time, is I think of a goal as like an outline for a book. You create the outline as a plan, but as you're writing it, sometimes your characters demand or something comes up and it changes, right? So you can actually be flexible with your goals, which is at least something that I like to tell myself so that I don't go, oh, wow, I never did this thing, but I did this other thing.
See, outlining, that must be why I can never actually get the whole goal setting thing going.
It's the outline, right?
Yeah, see, outlining. All right, I think I figured out what's going on with the doubling up my voice, so maybe this will help. So we in that light. So I kind of wanted us to talk, you and I, to talk a little bit about how we plan and strategize for our own stuff. But I did come up with some topics that we can use to guide this whole conversation. But I do want everybody watching, please ask us anything anytime during the show. We'll take questions throughout. And we want to make sure that we're addressing all the cool stuff that you guys want to know. But first up, so like you said, that whole concept of thinking of planning your author career and planning your year in writing, just like an outline for a book, that always has been kind of a hang up for me, because I am, as I'm famously a pantser,
right,
or a discovery writer, and I always kind of ran my career that way. But I'm going to confess, Mark, to you and only you, so everyone else has to stop.
No one else is listening right now, Kevin.
I discovered quite a while back that if I don't do at least a little bit of sitting down and sketching out what I want my year to look like, then I'm not going to accomplish the things I really wanted to accomplish. And for me, it really kind of came down to just flat out saying, what do I want to do this year was the biggest thing. And then determining like maybe 5 steps that I can take throughout the year to get to it. Once I kind of realized that was the bare minimum for planning and goal setting, it didn't seem so intimidating anymore. So that's kind of what I do. How do you handle strategizing at the beginning of the year?
I take a look at the goals I'd set for the previous year. Now I do that on my weekly podcast as well. So I kind of hold myself accountable to listeners, and I look at what I did get done, what I said I'd get done, what I actually got done, and then when you first look at it, you go, wow, you didn't get much done on your list. But then I also include all of the other things that I did. So I instead of beating myself up for the things I didn't do, I take a look at the stuff I actually did get done. And even though I'm not like yourself, I'm a discovery writer, and I think it was Diane who said she likes that term, discovery writing in the comments. I'm a discovery writer as well. My outlines are so loose and so fast and loose, right? They're just basic ideas. And it's like, yeah, we'll just kind of jump in and see what happens. So my own plans typically are high level. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And because I approach it that way, this is going to be a discovery year for me, just like this novel is a discovery novel.
This year is kind of a discovery year for everybody, Mark. I think
who knows what's going to happen, right? But because I mean, like last year, this time last year, you and I still had a full travel schedule and stuff, right? So thinking about Draft to Digital plans and what we had plans to connect with writers and stuff, we went to a few conferences early on in the year. And then, obviously, I'm going to overuse the word pivot, but we did have to pivot, and that's where this thing that we're doing now was born out of, right?
Yeah, man, we had to pivot like a ballet dancer. We were pivoting all over the stage all year long. So any plans that we had, all the strategies we had, everything had to be adjusted, and I think that's true of authors as well. I know it was true for me, but the all the things I had strategized over, say January 1st through 7th, 2020, almost none of that happened last year.
Same here, which is why I didn't beat myself up. Now, I would be curious for anyone who's watching live to share any tips or strategies that have worked for you for planning or productivity or whatever. Because we'll answer questions, but we'll also hey, we're here to learn too, because we're both writers as well, right?
Yeah. So giving that, let's take a look at. I pulled this together, and it's just kind of we're not going to do like a blow by blow presentation or something here. And if you're listening to the show, don't worry, you're not missing anything. But as a way to kind of guide the conversation a little, I put something together real quick. So one of the things that I spend time planning is releases. And here's what's funny about me, Mark. I don't actually know what books I'm going to write most of the year, right? Okay. So from my planning, it's like, okay, I want to put out 3 or 5 or 10 books this year. That's the way I do that.
Just generically books, you just say, right?
Books, yeah, something. Okay. I know now because last year, one of the things I did was a pivot because I have my main thriller series, the Dan Kotler books, and I decided after 11 books I wanted to start incorporating other ideas that were outside the Kotler specific universe but maybe still related. So I started another series last year during the summer, and I retooled a book that I re-released toward the end of the year. So I basically have like 3 series going. So the plan this year so far, I planned releases for, I've got months in mind for a release. I've decided to start alternating this series, and that series. So because I know there's going to be a book in that series, I don't have to know what that book is. I just know that by this time I need that book written. So that was one of the ways I handled releases.
Okay.
How about you?
Now, one of the ways I handled some releases for 2021 is I put them up for pre-order last year. And I've got a novel in my Canadian Werewolf series coming out. Fear and Longing in Los Angeles comes out on the 23rd of February. I've got Wide for the Wind, which is coming out in March. Now, that was planned for January, but I actually had to, because some of the retailers I'm talking to learn more about their services and some of the data I'm collecting from authors is taking longer than planned, I had to push the release date back. Now, fortunately, I did not put the pre-order up on Amazon, so they're not going to come and kneecap me for changing it, but every other retailer is 100% fine, so long as you're not changing obviously you change your pre-order date every day, but I changed it from the end of January to it's coming out in March now. So I've got 2 books for sure that I've dedicated to put up for pre-order. I have probably another 6 books or 7, depending on how things shake out, in the works. And those other 6 books are a lot more like you. Yeah, I think it's going to be, I'm probably more specific, right? There may be another Canadian Werewolf book if things work out well, but there may be a book on this topic in this area. There may be a book here. And a lot of them for me are combinations. So some of them are collaborative projects, and some of them are stuff that's just on me.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing I think that's interesting. Speaking of collaborative projects, I published several, I think three books last year that I had, well, actually more than three, but I had no idea I was going to ever publish, including a collaboration we put together, right? Like a Dan
Exactly.
Copper story, a Michael Andrews Canadian Werewolf story. And we did it because we wanted to test, alpha test the draft to digital payment splitting. And it was kind of like, oh, we need to put something through the cycle before we release it to authors because we want to make sure it works. So we just grabbed really, really quickly and put it together.
And
so I had no idea we would release a book together. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I never considered that either. And that's a really good example. Although we're kind of specific on that because the nature of that is specific to us and what we do. But you never know. Toward the end of the year, I got invited to participate in a box set that I wasn't expecting, and so I had to kind of rush and write something pretty. It was a novella, but it was a lengthy novella. It was nearly a novel-length book that I hadn't planned to write. So, those are opportunities. So you have to, in your planning, make sure you leave room for those opportunities that just pop up that you didn't know were going to be there. Here's a comment from Victor. He's coming in from YouTube. Hello, YouTube. My goal is to sell a 20 to 30 page ebook / print on demand through D2D. I think that's a worthwhile goal, Victor. So,
half of the goal is good. Ebook for sure.
Yeah.
Print
book,
that's going to be tricky because it's got to be what?
There's a minimum. I think it's
64 pages.
Yes, I think actually Alyssa answered that. 64 pages. So
Alyssa's already all over that. So thank you, Alyssa.
Alyssa always takes care of us and has to, because we're never going to be able to take care of ourselves. Here's a question from Nicholas. What would I saw the question mark and I didn't read the question ahead of time.
Why would you?
Mistake I made. Why would you, when history and current events have no outline? That's more
true.
of a philosophy.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, why would we plan if everything else can't be?
Exactly right. So I'm going to.
I think Diana. Did you see Diana's question? Actually, this might be. It's about productivity.
Well, is this one? Yeah, here it is. That's what I was looking for. So I'm adding my series to D2D. I'm not sure how to add links to the book following book one. Right now, I'm loading book one, publishing, then loading the next book, publishing, so I can get the link. Then returning to book one and adding book two, link, and reloading the book. Is there an easier way? It's messing up my productivity mojo. Yeah, I can understand that. So what you can do is you can go ahead and you can actually set up the books in advance without publishing them. So you'd have sort of a placeholder. And that way you can, if you're using our built-in tool for our automated in matter, which I think Alyssa just popped something up about that. Our automated in matter tool lets you link to the next book you want to promote. So you can use that. If the book already exists in our system, you should be able to link to it from there. So that might help. And that includes like the book's cover and a description. If you don't have the cover or anything yet, actually, I'm not sure what happens if you don't have a cover when that goes out. But you can set up pre-orders and things like that without the assets, meaning you don't have to have the manuscript.
I think she is going to have to go back she's going to have to go back at least once in the process, but at least she can get the majority of it done and then go back and do the publishing. But I think she'll have to do them one by one because I think the link is assigned when you hit the publish button. It may not be live until there's active titles like retailers that we find, but you could at least have the link and go back and insert them. I think that's how.
Yeah, if nothing else, I think I would just put in the lo-fi version of this is I would put a page in the back of the book that just describes the next book and gets people kind of primed for it, even if you don't yet have a link. And that way, all you got to do is go drop that link in later. So it's a little less editing. So that's the way I used to do that in the past. I'm sure that I'm getting yelled at right now. Some people in CS here at Draft Digital are yelling at their screen saying, "Dummy, why didn't you think of this? You sit in front of a camera and remember stuff." Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So, all right.
But there are much smarter people at our support desk, right? Support at
We have much smarter.
draftedigital.com.
So
Yeah.
the real answer is, if you have a question like that and the two dummies in the podcast weren't able to get you the right answer, email us at support@draftedigital.com, and much smarter people than us will be able to answer your question. So, this is one I hear a lot. My goal is to find more reason to write and less excuse of why I can't consistently, and to publish my first book of poetry in March. It's waiting on cover art, and first novel or novella by August. See, that's a schedule right there. I mean, a lot of people don't
Awesome.
know that much in advance. So finding the reason to write is that's what can I say? It's all up to you. It's all personal. For me, the reason to write was I get really cranky. Actually, for Christmas, my mother-in-law gave me this little metal sign to hang on my wall that says "Writing because murder is wrong." So that's my why for why I write. So your mileage may vary. All right. So let's pop back into my little slideshow here. Slideshow. All right, I'm that guy now. I have slideshows. So production. This is another thing you can work on when you're sitting down to plan for your author year. And when I say production, I mean, what is it going to take to get the books that you need written? So I tend to target a daily word count. That's not everybody's target. Sometimes people write to a page count,
Right.
but you can. I find word counts are a little easier for me to manage. And because I can kind of estimate, I know in general that a book's going to be, say, 80,000 words long. I know how to figure out using math how many words per day I need to put on the page in order to get the first draft written.
Right.
Mark, how do
So
you
how do you
handle?
Yeah, well, I was going to say one of the ways to first figure out if you're not sure is to set a timer when you start a writing session. And you may need to do this multiple times because there will be times when you're really going to town and the words are flowing, and other times where they're not flowing. So you kind of get an average. So in an hour, I write approximately X. And then that
Yeah.
way, when you're mapping out and scheduling, and I am a advocate for, I may not be an advocate for outlining, but I'm an advocate for scheduling. So the first thing I do after I feed the animals when I get up in the morning, put on the coffee, is I usually from 5:30 in the morning till probably 7:30 in the morning is just dedicated to writing, and I usually specify what project I'm going to be writing, and it's writing. It's not research, it's not marketing, it's actual writing. So I know sometimes those 2 hours are really solid writing when I can get. So I go, okay, if I write X amount of words on this kind of project, because it's different for fiction and nonfiction. Fiction, I can tend to just make stuff up on the fly. When it's nonfiction, I actually have to pause and think a little bit. So that first draft is a little bit slower.
What?
I
I just
know,
make
it's
nonfiction
crazy.
up as I go.
But that's valuable because you need to have a feel for how many words you can write in a time period, and then looking at your situation. If you're working full time, maybe you only have half an hour at lunch every day, or maybe you can only spend time after the kids and anyone's in bed and you have time alone. So looking at that and being realistic too, right? So 80,000 words, if you only have an hour a week to write and you write 500 words an hour and you only get so many, you know what I mean? Like you can't go, well, I'm going to have a book, 5 books published this year.
Yeah.
You can't do that to yourself. You have to be a lot more realistic. I think that's important too.
And in that case, what I would recommend, and we may not get to it, but I actually have another quote unquote slide about this topic. Is what's called sharpening the saw. Like how are you working to improve your craft and what you're doing? That's something we don't often think about, but improving what we do so that we can do it better and so that we can earn more from it and get more out of it is an important part of formulating a strategy for a career. And doing something each year where you sit down and figure out what's the stuff I'm going to do, what's the time I'm going to set aside to improve myself. What books will I read? What courses will I take? What videos will I watch? Which authors will I connect with? That stuff is just as important as deciding how many books you're going to write and how many words you're going to put down. If you're only doing 500 words a week and you want to write 5 books in a year, I would put more emphasis on figuring out how to improve your productivity than I would on the word count. So we have another question from YouTube. As an experienced author, how long does it take, or would it take, for you to complete writing a standard novel?
It's arbitrary, right? 4 days.
Yeah. So
no, I mean like 4 24-hour days, like, writing yes. 20 hours a day, right?
Right.
But that usually takes 6 months.
I wrote one book in my life in a single day. And that book is called Evergreen. Now, that doesn't mean it was ready for prime time at the end of that day, but it was written in the 60,000 word range. And I have a whole story about it in the back of that book if you want to check it out. But that said, I'm continuously trying to push myself to see how far I can go, and that was the most extreme, and I'm not going to ever try that again. But on average, right. For me, it's about a 15-day period of writing each day at about 2,500 words a day. That generally will get me a book in 15 days. So that's, and your mileage is going to vary because it all comes down to what's your target, how much time do you have to write, or how much time are you going to make to write, and how much can you write in that time. And once you kind of got all those numbers, you can sort of figure it out. And what I did, the way I got to a point where I could write a book in 1 day or a book in 15 days even, was always pushing myself to go just a little further. So I wrote that first book in 3 years. I want to see if I can write one in a year, and then I wanted to see if I could write one in a month, and then I want to see if I could write one in 15 days, and etc. So as long as you keep pushing yourself, you'll grow. Okay, so I'm going to pop us up in the our guide again and think about marketing. This is something I think it gives everybody what I call the hollow, which is that feeling of dread and anxiety in the pit of their stomach, because thinking about marketing is scary to a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be, and it can actually be pretty important. And the note that I put here was to write down 5 ideas for marketing that fit your budget and plan when to implement them. That's a method that works for me. The 3 to 5 idea, it always works well for me. Like, what are 3 ways I could do this? And just make myself come up with 3 ways to do it. That's always been a good strategy for me. So things that fit your budget would be, if you have no budget, then what 3 free things or 5 free things could you do this year to at least get your book out there? So Mark, how do you strategize around marketing?
Yeah, so in the part where I'm planning a book or working on the book, my marketing thinking is not necessarily the strategies or tactics I'm going to use. It's more about who the people are that are going to enjoy this. So while I'm writing it, I'm thinking about what kind of reader would resonate with this scene, with this character, with this thing that happens, and when that comes to me, I may write down comp authors, comp titles. This reminds me of a scene from this movie. This reminds me of a song. This reminds me of whatever. And I just put it off to the side, because then when I'm finished, I can go back and say, because a novel, it has so, let's assume it's a 80,000 word novel, has so many intricate things about it, right? It's not just this simple, tweet, right? It's not like a simple, like, A, B, and C or whatever. It's like a lot more complex. There's multiple characters and situations. And so there may be elements of your book that you forget when you're standing back and looking at the big thing, but they resonated in the moment. If they resonated with you while you were writing them, chances are they're going to resonate with the right reader. And so I often, when I'm looking at marketing, I try to go back to those touch points, because I'm always thinking about who is the person who is going to appreciate this story the most. And then when I do my marketing, it's kind of like, am I keeping them in mind? Am I going to reach them in the right places at the right time? So that's something that that's kind of the approach I take. It ends up slowing down my writing in some cases, because I'm pausing to put little notes in the margin, but you can record them too, right?
Right.
So
think I kind of collect marketing ideas like collecting rare stamps. As I'm kind of moving around in the world, someone will tell me something or I'll read something. I tell you, I get more marketing ideas from reading autobiographies uh, than from any other source. So if you are looking for an education in marketing, I could recommend starting by listening to a bunch of like modern day autobiographies. Autobiographies are important in that statement because it's the person telling you how they did it. So when they say like for instance, right now I'm listening to Kevin Smith's tough swear word, and go look for it. Find it, pronounce it yourself. It's a
It's not
family
tough
show.
poop, is it?
Tough poop. I'm listening to that, and he's talking about his kind of film career up until about 2012, and he actually talks a little bit about how they marketed some of his work, in particular how he marketed Red State, and whether you're a Kevin Smith fan or not, and I'm not usually a big fan of his movies, but I kind of like the guy. But the stuff that he talks about can translate over to the writing world. So keep your mind open when you're out there looking. You may find answers to some of these questions that you didn't. Because he marketed that movie with basically no money. So that's an important fact to know. So Charles Harvey on Facebook is asking, does D2D plan on having some kind of online bookstore soon? And we're going to segue into something after answering this question, Mark. But go.
I'll let you do the segue. So we're not about selling. That's a whole different atmosphere. We're about helping you create the book, saving you the time, the tools, and resources. Now, we do have books to read, which links to retailers and places where people can buy books. And we have already added, if you're selling direct as an author, the ability to add links to that. And that's going to continue to expand. But I can't see any plans in the near future for us to create a bookstore. It's not our forte. Forte is helping you make it easy to get those books created and pushed out into the world.
Yeah.
Does that allow you to segue?
That does, because I wanted to show everyone a shining example of one of the tools that we have that is a sort of storefront, that is a way for you to build your own bookstores if you'd like. And we're going to be leveraging this tool ourselves to help promote your work and others, the work of others as we go. But right now we have one of our D2D reading lists, our books to read reading lists, is available with books themed for this exact idea, how to plan and strategize and improve your writing world. Now, when we were talking about sharpening the saw earlier, this would be a good example. Writing and publishing reads, if you go to this link, and I'm going to pop it right into the comments as well. Boom. And for you who are listening, it is bookstoread.com/RL, RL as in reading list, bookstoread.com/RL/writing and publishing. All spelled out, all one word, all lowercase. If you go to that page, there are all these carousels of books that are all about writing, publishing, marketing your work, all the useful things a writer needs to learn about and know. And there is a variety of topics there, a variety of authors there. So that is an example also of one of our tools that you get to use for free. You can actually build your own reading lists at bookstoread.com. And those reading lists can be geared towards anything you want. They can be all about your books. So if you want to build a special series page, there is a way to do what we call a hero book, where if you have a carousel that only features one book, that book is bigger and has space for you to type something in beside it. And so you can actually do that to promote a specific book. But like I have a reading list, it's all about thriller authors. And I have, my feature book is up top, but each carousel is themed. So I have one that's all about Mayan tombs. That's all books that are feature the Mayans. Another carousel that's all books that feature the Antarctica, or feature Antarctica rather.
Right.
All by different authors. And one of the cool things about that is you can set up affiliate links through sites like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple. If you've got that stuff set up, you can include those on your Books to Read dashboard, you can add all those affiliate links. And every time you send out a link, when people click on it and they buy something, you get affiliate money for that. So you can actually monetize your own bookstore using the Books to Read reading list. But I do recommend that you go right now to, and if it didn't translate, I think it moved over to everybody's comments. But in the comments, I dropped a link with the writing and publishing reads, and that is bookstoread.com/rl/writing and publishing. So,
and just to highlight this, because I think it's important, anyone can build their own reading list for free using the free tool bookstoread.com. Now, Kevin has mentioned he's worked collaboratively with other authors where they've put together similar themed books. You don't even have to own the rights to the book to be able to link to it.
That's right.
I have reading lists of my own books that are traditionally published. Some of them are published through Drafted Digital. I think that writing and publishing, for example, we highlight some traditionally published books alongside with books that are on different platforms. And the cool thing is you find the book you want, and then Books to Read, the magic of Books to Read, is it takes you to the right geolocation for the version of your favorite store, if they exist in another geo. Some stores like Nook don't exist outside the US. But, Kobo and Apple and Amazon, for example, do have international stores. And it'll take Kevin to the US. It'll take me to Canada. It'll take, I think Nicholas might be from Italy, if I remember correctly. Right. So folks from around the world will take you to the right version of the store you prefer. So it's almost like a universal book link or something like that.
Universal book links. Yep, it's built on our universal book link tech. So you can target everybody and send them to their preferred store in their preferred region. Very, very easy, and can be kind of fun to do. Does take some work. I mean, you're going to have to spend time building the links and then building the carousels. But I love psychological advantages. And one of a cool psychological advantage to building your reading lists and featuring your books and the books of others is that you can basically, our readers are geared towards the idea that if they're on Amazon.com looking at a list of books, the cream of the crop is at the top. The bestsellers are right there. That's why you see John Grisham and Stephen King and Danielle Steele are always at the top of those lists. But when you build your own reading list, you can put yourself right next to Stephen King and John Grisham, have your book prominently displayed right next to theirs. And when people do visit that link, that page, they get that psychological impression that you are right there with the big swingers. So something to keep in mind. I love psychological tricks. So please, if you haven't already, make sure you are asking us questions in the comments. I'm kind of scanning through to find things as we go. Here's a comment from Alexis I wanted to read. So when you aren't your own bookstore, you don't have to focus on competing with the places you distribute to, and you can focus on mastering distribution.
Ooh, brilliant.
Digital will. Here's a question or a comment from Vivian. I started writing my blurbs once. I'm 1 to 2 chapters into the writing. 1, to keep me focused, but 2, if I learn something about marketing keywords, have another idea, or think of something else that might resonate better, I have something to edit. I think that is a smart thing to do. This is one of the things I tell people, and this is, I have a whole book dedicated to this idea, but I liken editing and writing. So I always tell people, do not edit while you write. That's the quickest way to never finish what you're writing. And instead, write and then go back and edit. And the reason I say that is it's kind of a similar idea. When you do that, you have something to edit. It's like trying to carve a statue out of a block of marble. Unless you have the block of marble, you're not going to have a statue. So write and then edit later. And using that same kind of concept, write your blurb as you go and edit as you go. That's a brilliant That's a brilliant idea. I love it.
I think the other thing too is, and this could be useful for people with writer's block, is so Vivian's got this running document on the side that she's capturing elements for the blurb, which can be important. Let's say she gets to a scene and she's stuck, right? Feels like there's some sort of block. Just instead of stopping, just moves over to another path, starts playing with the blurb. Maybe even in that work, she finds the answer. Because sometimes when you're not focused on it, sometimes when you look the other way, the pot boils, right?
Yeah.
And so that could actually help you with productivity, so that you're still making forward momentum on that book project, even if you're not necessarily always getting those next words down right away.
Yes. All right, let's hop on over to our primer again. So the next slide was all about newsletter building, and there are a lot of tools that can help you with this. You're going to hear us and everyone else tell you a million times between now and the day you die that an email newsletter is still the number one way to market your work. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I've been proven wrong about things before, but so very rarely I can't even recall an example. But if you are serious about building a career around your writing, the way you do that, my humble opinion, is focus on building as big a newsletter as you can. If you did no other marketing this year, but focus on building a newsletter, I think you can end the year in the black. Make a profit from your books. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think that most of the time that's the case. So spending some time at the beginning of the year planning how you're going to do that is useful time. I recommend tools like BookFunnel and BookSweep, which are both have promotion tools and ways to get people on a mailing list. But you could also do cross promotion with other authors, which is when two authors emailed their mutual lists to say, hey, this author has a book, get on their list to get it, etc. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but what you need to do is sit down and figure out the path that's going to work best for you and how often you're going to do it through the course of the year. So Mark, I've never asked you how you feel about email and newsletters.
I think it's bunk. No one should ever do it. No, I'm kidding. Of course, it's one of the most valuable tools you can have. Even, and this is really, really critical, because even if you only have a small number of people on your newsletter, there are people who've signed up because they want to hear from you. They want to be updated. So don't worry about, I don't have 10,000 people or something like that. You've always got to start. I would rather have 10 of the right people who really resonate with my writing and want to hear from me than 100 people who only signed up because of maybe they got something for free, but they don't really care. So in terms of planning for newsletter, one of the things, I was talking to an author the other day, and she told me that she actually plans out because you can set autoresponder sequences, because oftentimes writers go, what do I say? What do I share? What do I do? And she plans out 80% of her messages are autoresponders, which are, behind the scenes, and they may be things about the writing of the various books, or things that are kind of in line with her audience and what they want to read. She plans them out at the beginning of a cycle of a year or maybe a quarter, and then plans them out and just schedules them now and then. So she optimizes her time. So instead of once every 2 weeks or once a month when she's going to do that, she has that, and so she sets that out for think of the reader journey. They sign up, they want to learn more about you. So there's these progressive emails that are automated to just keep them with interesting and informative and entertaining content. And then in between, when she has a new release or a BookBub or Bargain Booksy promo, or she's in an Apple promo or whatever promos come up or anything, or a new release or something, she can then fill in those blanks with the promotional. So 80% of her content is entertaining, informative, connecting with her readers, and 20% of her content is push promo advertising kind of thing, which is a good balance, I think, to have. But I love how she plans it out. Whereas I go, oh my God, it's almost the end of the month. What am I going to say? And I waste a lot of time, right? I do waste a lot of time on.
And to just give you an example of how planning ahead can be very, very useful to you and kind of help save you toward the end of the year, my wife and I both got very sick. And there was a good 2 or 3 months in there where it was very difficult to do anything, much less think of fun and creative ways to reach out to my mailing list. And so, unfortunately, I had not pre-written and pre-planned a bunch of emails to go out. So they basically went without hearing from me for a little while. And I generally try to touch base with my readers once a month at a minimum. So that to me was an offense. Like I just felt like I'd let them down by not being prepared. So this year, one of the things I am working on is starting to pre-program some emails. You don't have to let those emails go out. You can schedule them. They're the generic emails that aren't quite as personalized. And, you can include some personable stuff in them. Like they're not going to have current events or whatever in them. But knowing that email is coming up, if you can't get to it to make an edit, you want to make sure it's clean enough to go out, and that will save you. But you can always pop in beforehand, do a quick edit, add some details, add a link to a new book, whatever you need to do, and then that email becomes a current email. So having that stuff there, it's again, we're going back to that, the idea from earlier of having something to work with, having something to edit is a good way to save yourself when things go wrong. And I think if 2020 has proven anything, is that things can go wrong. So here's an interesting question. Victor popped in with, how do you protect the rights of your book if you get sued? Should you put your book in an LLC or something like that? Maybe these are lawyer questions. I don't know. These are lawyer questions. But I can give you some generic advice and then tell you to go seek out the counsel of an actual lawyer. But an LLC is actually a good way to protect yourself from liability in most circumstances. I don't know about elsewhere, but in the United States, you can generally file an LLC for a couple $100 in your state online. So it's not a difficult thing to do, and it is a good way to at least provide yourself with some protection. I'm not going to tell you it would protect you from all liability, but it is a limited liability, so it's probably not a bad idea to have that. I don't know what things look like in Canada. What's it like?
It's similar. Obviously, the laws are going to be different around the world, but it's similar. Victor, go and look for the Writers Inc. podcast with Jay Thorne and JD Barker. They had a guest who was a lawyer in this area on the show. He was not given legal advice, but he knows a lot more than we do about this, and he offered advice along those lines specifically. I do remember, and it was just within the last 3 or 4. I'm kind of behind in my listening, but it's probably in the last 3 or 4 weeks that this episode came out on the Writers Inc. podcast. I think you'll probably find some good value there.
Yep, a good plug. Yes, they're good guys, and they got a great show. So we got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to pop back over to our cheat sheet. And the next topic, I think, was sharpening saw, which we kind of talked about. Yep. But inspiration, this is something no one ever thinks about. And it kind of goes along with the sharpening the saw idea. Sharpening the saw is all about making sure you're setting aside a time to improve your craft, the way you run your business, the way you do your marketing, learning so that you can improve yourself. But inspiration is about filling your tank. How are you going to give yourself a break from the stress of writing, but also how are you going to give yourself a source of new ideas? Books, films, travel, and I put down here connecting with other authors. These are all ways that you can find inspiration, find your why, like we talked about earlier, like the why of why you're doing this. You can actually find that through the sources of inspiration that you seek out. I started the year on my Kindle, and I'm sorry, I still use my Kindle, but my actual Kindle device. So I've got like thousands of books I've read, but I have 170. At the start of the year, I had 174 books that I had not yet read. They were on my to be read pile. And I thought that's a little much. So I decided at the beginning of the year, I'm going to chew through that list. I'm not going to, I said I wasn't going to buy any more books, but I bought like 50 more books since then. But I'm going to read that 174 books this year for sure. And I started reading. I have a process. I read 3 books at a time. I read a book in the morning for about an hour. That's usually nonfiction, something to sharpen my saw. That's what that is. I listen to audiobooks when I'm making my coffee or taking walks or driving. And in the evenings, I generally read 2 to 3 hours of fiction to help me wind down for the evening. And doing that, since the 1st of January, I've read 9 books total off of that book list of 174 books. So not quite my old winning score of like 10 books a week when I was poor and all I had was a library card. But these days, pretty good considering how busy I am. So that's how I'm finding inspiration and sharpening my saw. So, Mark, what are some things you're doing in the inspiration front?
I find the mind body connection really, really valuable. So going for a run, going for a walk, occupying a different part of my body so that my mind can be free to do those things. Now, in times where you can't leave the house or can't go running or whatever, I've recently discovered the pleasure of meditation, just actually meditating, even if it's only for 5 minutes. I find that really cleanses, it clears the mind. There's some guided meditations. You can find them on YouTube. You can find some on, I have some through a Fitbit app, and it just is great because it just gives me this reset. And I find oftentimes when I take that pause, I usually come out of it with some new idea for my writing that's beneficial. So those are some of the things that I do in terms of filling. Obviously, I'm consuming books. I'm listening to them. I'm reading them on my Kobo because I'm Canadian, and or print as well because I'm still a sucker for print books too.
Yeah, me too. But we've been traveling a lot in the van, and it just takes up too much space. So the Kindle was my solution.
Makes sense.
Because it's kind of hard to carry a couple of thousand books with you in a van.
It is.
All right, so we are at the end. We're going to wrap up now. This went very well. I'm so excited to see the number of people who popped in, asking questions and participating. So, of course, thank you, Mark, for your brilliance and wisdom. Far overshadowing me, but I think everyone benefited from the show. If you are so inclined, especially if you're already on YouTube, make sure you are subscribing to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/draftthedigital. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell to get notifications whenever we release one of these things. You're gonna know in advance usually because it'll pop up and say, "Hey, DVD's coming." You can also subscribe and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/draftthedigital. Where we do these streams live fairly regularly. Make sure to bookmark d2dlive.com. That's where you can find a little countdown timer that tells you when the next live show is going to be, and some links to some of the stuff that we have done in the past. If you haven't already, go to selfpublishinginsiders.com. I swear one day we're going to build its own special page for this stuff, but for right now it points to our blog where you can find all these posts. And over the next starting back again in February, the podcast resumes. So as of February 4th and onward, you'll be able to catch the audio version of this show and the video version of the show and a transcript of the show. It's just a smorgasbord of self-publishing insiders. So that is going to wrap us up. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful new year. I know it started a little rough, but you know what? You're an amazing author. You're an amazing person. Mark, I'm talking to you, buddy. And also to you, dear watcher and listener. We're going to duck out now, and you take care and be safe and be healthy out there.
Happy writing.